Okay, guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right, guys, I'm back, and it is Saturday, September 5th, and it is 9:56 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well this long weekend. It's Labor Day on Monday, so probably you all have a little bit of time off, hopefully, anyway. Now, let's just jump right into the news, but first, sit back, get yourself a beverage, a hot or cold beverage, and put your feet up and relax. And let's do the news. Okay, now first I do want to thank the following people, and a lot of people have taken me up on the offer to switch from Patreon to Ko-fi, because Ko-fi does not take a portion of the income at all. So donating via Patreon, they do keep a percentage of that, but with Ko-fi, every single penny goes to the creator. So that is phenomenal, really. That's the best deal out there, because most places take a small fee, but they do not. So many people have switched over, and besides, Patreon does support Black Lives Matter. So that is an issue for many people as well, and I really don't like the fact that they are supporting them either. But anyway, Ko-fi does not, and many people have taken me up on that, so thank you very much. So Gail, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Gail, so I'm just going to call you Gail M. She donated via Ko-fi, and she is, that's a recurring donation monthly. Grammy Victory, Melanie Winans, I think, Windy Sky monthly. Exploring the Autism Universe, her donation is monthly. Sherry McCormick Lewis, her donation is monthly. Karen Rife, monthly. And Coffee Supporter, they call themselves Coffee Supporter, so there you go. Ursa Bruin, Eden's Vision donated a monthly amount. Rebecca Fairbow donated a monthly amount, and Q Kitchen Manager donated a monthly amount. I'm curious about Q Kitchen Manager. Kitchen managers, well, they're good to have around. Anyway, let's get into the news now. Make yourself comfortable and get prepared, because I heard the news that there is a cold front coming to the middle part of America. So seems like the fall is showing up. I was out today for a bit, and it felt like fall out there. There's a smell that comes in the air when fall is around the corner. I'm not sure what that is, but a lot of people, notice it and mention it. So, there is a particular smell or feel in the air when fall is coming, and I felt that. And no, it didn't cheer me up any at all. Not at all, because I love the summer. I love it. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get into the news, and we're going to start out with a doozy here, and it's concerning Bill Gates. UN forced to admit Gates-funded vaccine is causing polio outbreak in Africa. Shouldn't surprise any of us, because this has been ongoing. His vaccines have traditionally been not well received in Africa, because it tends to, when he shows up with vaccines, people tend to die. And that has been noted and well documented. There is lots of information on that out there. And I have provided some on this show concerning that, and will continue to do so as I find it. This really should be one of the biggest scandals in public health, but it's given little attention, mainly because of the high-profile nature of the people and organizations involved. The United Nations has been forced to admit that a major international vaccine initiative is actually causing the outbreak of the very disease it was supposed to wipe out. While international organizations like the World Health Organization will regularly boast about supposedly eradicating polio with vaccines, the opposite seems to be the case. Their decades-long campaign to eradicate polio is now killing scores of innocent young people living in poor countries. Now, it seems that the health officials are beginning to admit that their plan to stop wild polio is backfiring, as scores of children are being paralyzed, from a deadly strain of the pathogen derived from a live vaccine, causing a virulent of polio to spread. That is not how I would use virulent, but there you go. Now, it says this latest pharma-induced pandemic has broken out in the African countries of Chad and Sudan, and the culprit has been identified, a vaccine-derived polio virus type 2. Officials now fear this new dangerous strain could soon jump continents, causing further deadly outbreaks around the world. Shocking as it sounds, the big pharma debacle is not new. After spending some $16 billion over 30 years to eradicate polio, international health bodies have accidentally reintroduced the disease in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and also Iran, as the Central Asia region was hit by a virulent strain of polio spawned by the corporate pharmaceutical vaccine distributed there. Also, in 2019, the government of Ethiopia ordered the destruction of 57,000 vials of type 2 oral polio vaccine following a similar outbreak of vaccine-induced polio. It's important to note that the oral polio vaccine being pushed on the African population by the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, a consortium which is supported and funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All of this should be a cause for concern, especially with Western governments and transnational pharmaceutical giants all rushing to roll out their new Gates-funded experimental coronavirus vaccine for the global population. Currently, the first experimental COVID-19 vaccine is being tested on the American population through Gavi Vaccine Alliance, another organization funded by the Gates Foundation. A large round of human trials will take place in South Africa, locally managed by the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, yet another Gates-funded institution. The latest revelation from Africa should prompt media and health advocates to ask hard questions about the efficacy and safety of the much-hyped COVID miracle vaccine. Well, I don't believe that there is such a miracle vaccine, and anything that has Bill Gates' name attached to it, I want to stay far away from. So the World Health Organization says a new polio outbreak in Sudan is linked to an ongoing vaccine-sparked epidemic in Chad, a week after the UN Health Agency declared the African continent free of the wild polio virus. In a statement this week, WHO said 2 children in Sudan, one from South Darfur state and the other from Gedaref state, close to the border with Ethiopia and Eritrea, were paralyzed in March and April. Both had been recently vaccinated against polio. WHO said initial outbreak investigations show the cases are linked to an ongoing vaccine-derived outbreak in Chad that was first detected last year and is now spreading in Chad and Cameroon. There is local circulation in Sudan and continued sharing of transmission with Chad, the UN agency said, adding that generic sequencing confirmed numerous introductions of the virus into Sudan from Chad. WHO said it had found 11 additional vaccine-derived polio cases in Sudan and that the virus has also been identified in environmental samples. There are typically many more unreported cases for every confirmed polio patient. The highly infectious disease can spread quickly in contaminated water and most often strikes children under 5. In rare instances, the live polio virus in the oral vaccine can mutate into a form capable of sparking new outbreaks. So on Monday, WHO warned that the risk of further spread of the vaccine-derived polio across Central Africa and the Horn of Africa was high, noting the large-scale population movements in the region. More than a dozen African countries are currently battling outbreaks of polio caused by the virus, including Angola, Nigeria, and Zambia. Amid the coronavirus pandemic, many of the large-scale vaccination campaigns needed to stamp out polio have been disrupted. So, all the more reason not to trust anything with Gates' name attached. Not that I think that we're going to have much choice. I know I hate to contradict you people that believe that the vaccine won't be mandatory. And I don't think it will be mandatory. I don't think they're going to mandate from the government that everyone must have a vaccine, but the airline industries, they can demand you have a vaccine before you get on their plane. Same thing with trains and, buses. Greyhound buses, what have you, or your place of employment could demand that you have a vaccine. And it still won't be considered mandatory by the government, but it will be mandatory in order to do business or work in some places. I don't think all, but time will tell. But I sure hope and pray that this vaccine won't be mandated across the board, but who knows? All right, let's go back now because there's more news to get to, and let's take a look at this. Yeah, a little strange to say the very least. Now let me make this bigger for you tiny phone people because I want you to have a fair advantage. Now, this is a bunch of people using that term loosely, that are ridding the area of COVID. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They are ridding the area of COVID. Now, you would think that maybe they had disinfectant bottles or, rubbing alcohol, anything, that would make sense to get rid of COVID. No, you'd be wrong. So let's take a look at this short little clip of these people ridding the area of COVID. Yeah. I feel safer already. Yeah. So there you go. They rid the area of COVID, and I'm sure everyone is so much safer because of it. Looks like they are just waving plastic bags in the air and plastic bottles as well. But no, that you'd be wrong if you just think they're waving bags in the air, because they insist they are ridding the area of COVID. I guess what? Are they trapping it in their plastic bags? And then what? I don't know. But that is what they're doing. Yeah, so let's move on, because how do you comment after that? I mean, it's not like I can follow that up with anything. So let's just go back to the news now. I thought you'd want to see that if you hadn't already. I know I feel safer just watching it. Sure. Why not? Okay. Well, let's look at this. Yeah, the ICAO mandates worldwide government surveillance of air travelers. It's coming, folks. It's coming. This is from yesterday, September 4th, and it says text of Amendment 28 to the International Standards and Recommended Practices Facilitation, Annex 9 to the Convention of International Civil Aviation, and amend Annex 9 as follows. Each contracting state, and it used to say requiring passenger name record PNR data shall, but it says D passenger name record PNR data. So each contracting state shall develop a capability to collect, use, process, and protect passenger name record PNR data for flights to and from its territory, supported by appropriate legal and administrative framework such as inter alia legislation, regulation, or decree, and be consistent with all standards contained in Section D, Chapter 9, Annex 9. Align its PNR data requirements and its handling of such data with the guidelines contained in ICAO Doc 9944, Guidelines on Passenger Name Record, PNR data, and in PNR Gov Message Implementation Guidance Materials, published and updated by the WCO and endorsed by ICAO. Okay, this is a lot of gobbledygook, but this is what all of this means. Playing out the end game we predicted last year of a 2-decade campaign by the U.S. government to establish a global regime of government surveillance of air travelers, the United Civil Aviation Organization has adopted an amendment to the Chicago Convention on Civil Aviation that will require each of the 193 state parties to that treaty, essentially every national government in the world, to require all airlines operating international flights to provide a designated government agency with complete mirror copies of all reservation records, passenger name records, in a standard PNR GOV transmission format. This is an extraordinary and, so far as we can tell, unprecedented globalization and normalization of suspicionless mass surveillance of the innocent exercise of legal rights. To our best knowledge, this is the first time that any industry, much less an industry of common carriers required by law, including by international aviation treaties, to transport all would-be passengers without discrimination in the exercise of a right of freedom of movement, also recognized by international treaties, has been mandated by international treaty to provide government agencies worldwide with complete copies of its commercial records of each of its transactions with a customer. No such treaty obligation exists, for example, with respect to records of postal, telephone, internet, or financial transactions. The exercise of rights should not be deemed per se suspicious or a legitimate ground for surveillance. So why are they keeping track of every single person's name that travels worldwide? Why? And when you look up that person's name, you'll be able to see every single place they've traveled. Well, I would say that that is a violation of privacy, personally, but so unless disapproved by a majority of state parties to the Chicago Convention, the mandate for PNR-based surveillance of air travelers will take effect worldwide on February 28th, 2021, pursuant to Article 90 of the Chicago Convention Standards and Recommended Practices, SARPs, approved by the ICAO Council, are binding on all parties to the treaty unless a majority of the signatories of the convention notified ICAO of their disapproval within 3 months or longer, as prescribed by the council, blah, blah, blah. So I guess the long and short of this is that they will keep a record of who travels where to what country, and it will be able to be viewable by, well, governments all over the world. So I don't know. Airlines are required to send government agencies complete copies of PNRs, including free text remarks entered in reservations by customer service, call center, or other travel industry staff, but airlines are only required to transmit the data they have collected for their own or their partners' business purposes and have stored in PNRs. This makes it important for travelers to request copies of their PNR data from airlines in countries where, unlike the U.S., the law entitles them to do so that they know what information is being passed on to government agencies in every country they visit, including those where they merely change planes, and B, insist that airlines start to minimize the data stored in PNRs and move as much personal information about travelers as possible to other databases not subject to mandatory disclosure to government agencies. Now, this means that, let's say you're flying somewhere, you just transfer planes in a country, and then you're right back on the plane. Well, if anything has been entered in, by the airline about your behavior or what have you, anything, it will be noted, and that country that you just stopped to change planes in will know. This is kind of strange, if you ask me. And I know there are many people that are saying, well, I'm not doing anything, bad. So what could the problem be? Well, could be a big problem, really, because what if you are unjustly, well, like the woman that was kicked off the airplane because her 2-year-old couldn't keep the mask. She couldn't keep the mask on her 2-year-old, so they kicked her and her family off the airplane. Well, that would be noted every time you fly, anywhere you fly in the entire world. They would know that. Now, you can see where the problem might come in. So anyway, this is interesting, and I don't really understand all of it, but I just know that it's not good. All right, I need to look more into that so that I can understand it fully, because this is unprecedented. It's never been done, and it just makes me wonder why they are doing this, and is this in preparation for the vaccines? Because then anywhere in the entire world will know if you've been vaccinated. They'll know because it'll be attached to your PNR data, and anywhere you travel in the world, they'll have that information, so they'll be able to green light you and say, yes, you can get on this flight. Yes, you can get on this flight. I'm just wondering if this is if they're doing this for that purpose. They're not saying it's for that purpose, but what other purpose would it be, really? Why do they need to know all your personal information all over the world just because you got on an airplane? So I would think that this is the mechanism, this is the backstory to what they're going to be requiring, and this will be the foundation, the network that they will run that through. I don't know. And, like I said, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. This is brand new to me as of today. So I do need to look further into this, and anyone that's listening that does have more information on this or knows or is in the aviation industry, let me know. I could be totally out there. So please let me know, because I would much rather be corrected and get the right information out than be right. I'm not concerned about being right. I'm concerned about being correct. So there you go. All right. Now, let's go back, because there's more. And let's look at this. And this is AmericanMilitaryNews.com. TSA tests touchless system that matches your ID to your face and avoids COVID-19 risks. What could go wrong? The Transportation Security Administration is testing a system that matches your ID to your face, avoiding person-to-person contact that could spread the coronavirus. The system, now part of a pilot program at Washington's Reagan National Airport, is similar to a technology that was tested last year at McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas, but the new system will allow passengers to insert their ID into the scanner rather than handing it to a TSA officer. That could be a good thing. In light of COVID-19, advanced health and safety precautions have become a top priority and part of the new normal for TSA. Administrator David Pekosk? I don't know. Me and last names. Anyway, this David guy said in a statement Tuesday, he said that if the pilot program proves successful, it may be implemented at more airports. Participation is voluntary for those who have TSA PreCheck, which expedites airport security screening. Now, let's come down here. The device verifies the authenticity of the ID by matching it to a photo that's taken on the spot. The information is displayed to a TSA officer behind a clear plastic barrier. Other passengers will not be able to see the image. That's good. Should the device not produce a match or should it generate an error, passengers will undergo a regular screening process. The machines will be able to authenticate a wide range of IDs, including driver's licenses, state-issued photo IDs, passports, military ID cards, and Department of Homeland Security trusted traveler cards. According to the TSA, photos of passengers are not saved or stored. Yeah, sure. The photos are deleted within 24 hours, if you believe that. I've got I got a bridge over the desert to sell you. Yeah, so the photos are deleted within 24 hours. According to a privacy assessment on the technology published in June, still the use of facial recognition technology raises concern among privacy advocates. Jeremy Scott, senior counsel at the Electronic Privacy Information Coalition, a Washington advocacy group, said there's nothing to stop TSA from making the screening process more intrusive. TSA could decide to keep photos taken to match passengers' ID for more than 24 hours, he said, or the agency could decide to match the photos to a database, which he said raises additional privacy concerns. Yeah, they could. They could take those photos, match them to databases of wanted criminals and so forth. I don't know. But in some ways, I can see this as being a good thing because everybody is increasingly worried about touching things and, and receiving things that have been touched. And it's not just COVID, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm not so worried about COVID, although I do realize it is a real thing. It's just not what they're telling us. But I do believe that there's more of this coming. So I think, it will become important to have touchless ways of doing business. But anyway, I worry about things being misused and used for the wrong reason. This could easily get out of hand, as I'm sure you are well aware of. All right, now let's go back and let's look at this. Okay, but this is very interesting. It's from the Daily Caller. Biden mega donor owns The Atlantic. Reportedly communicates often with journalists behind anonymously sourced Trump bombshell. Now, if you haven't heard about this, The Atlantic published an article that was anonymously sourced, of course, and that said Trump was disrespectful of the military and that he didn't want to visit the graves when he was over in France because it was raining and he didn't want to get his hair messed up. And I mean, just ridiculous things. And anybody that knows Trump at all can tell the way he feels about the military. He has put in so much money in rebuilding our military that had been systematically dismantled by Obama, and he regularly pays respect to the military and the men and women who are in service to the country. So I just don't believe it at all. And, the military people aren't even, buying it. They're like, no, I don't believe he said that, because it would be totally against all of his actions. His actions show that he respects the military. So I was interested when I found out that this person is a mega donor to Biden, who owns The Atlantic, and often often communicates with this journalist behind the anonymously sourced Trump bombshell. Yeah. Billionaire philanthropist Laurene Powell Jobs, the majority owner of The Atlantic, has donated over $1.2 million to former Vice President Joe Biden and other Democratic candidates and groups since 2019, Federal Election Commission records show. Powell Jobs owns a 70% stake in The Atlantic, and she reportedly communicates often with its editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg. Goldberg published an anonymously sourced story Thursday alleging that President Donald Trump has denigrated fallen American soldiers. The Atlantic majority owner has donated over $1.2 billion to Democratic candidates and political committees since 2019, while reportedly keeping in close contact with the magazine's editor-in-chief, who published an anonymously sourced story Thursday alleging that President Donald Trump denigrated fallen American soldiers. Don't believe that for even a second. Billionaire philanthropist Laurene Powell, the widow of former Apple CEO Steve Jobs, obtained a 70% stake in The Atlantic in 2017 through her firm, the Emerson Collective. In November, she further solidified her control over the magazine after its longtime chairman, David Bradley, said he was going to step away from management, according to Politico. Politico noted in its report that Powell Jobs communicates often with The Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg. Powell Jobs contributed $2,800 to former Vice President Joe Biden's primary campaign in October, and in June she divvied out an additional $610,600 to the Biden Victory Fund. She also provided maxed out donations to at least 66 other Democratic politicians since the start of 2019, and all while providing nothing to Republican candidates, according to the Federal Election Commission records. Other notable Democrats that Powell Jobs has contributed to this election season include former Democratic presidential candidates Cory Booker, Tom Steyer, Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang, Michael Bennet. FEC records show she also contributed to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, like she needs more money. Democratic reps Joe Kennedy, Ariana Presley, Eric Swalwell, and Adam Schiff. Yeah, Swalwell is the one that farted like a pig on live broadcast. Yeah, he did. The records show The Atlantic was the first outlet to report that Biden was running for president in April 2019. Bradley, who's still identified as The Atlantic's chairman in the magazine masthead, served as board member of the now defunct Biden Cancer Initiative. So, yeah, seems like the story might have been just concocted, of course, because there are no sources that you can go and verify this material with, because they're all anonymous sources, and that is the oldest trick in the book. That's how you write and smear somebody, because you just say, oh, my sources, they're anonymous. Yeah. Goldberg and Powell Jobs did not return requests for comment, asking if Powell Jobs had any involvement in or had any advanced knowledge of Goldberg's anonymously sourced story. The report published Thursday evening alleged that Trump called fallen soldiers losers and suckers during a 2018 trip to France. Now, if you believe that, you'll believe anything. And quite evidently, a lot of Democrats are believing this, because I'm seeing it all over social media. So they believe it, they're running with it, but I don't think anybody that supports Trump believes it, because you would have to be a complete idiot and have been living under a rock for probably, well, at least since 2017 to believe that Trump would disrespect the military in any way. Anyway, Democrats immediately seized upon the story, and by Friday morning, the progressive PAC Vote Vets had produced an ad featuring 6 Gold Star families pillaring Trump for his alleged comments, which never happened. Says here, Vote Vets said, Donald Trump called our fallen troops suckers and losers. They can't speak for themselves, but these 6 Gold Star families speak for our fallen. Yeah, and, gee, it's a little bit suspicious, don't you think, that this is coming out right before an election and from sources that can't be identified because they're anonymous. Yeah, like we're that stupid. Well, apparently some people are, because there are people that believe it. So anyway, yeah. Now, let me see down here. I'm going to skip through some of this. Yeah, it says, I don't know. I'm not going to go through all this. It's just too long. I just know that there's just not a chance. Trump aides defend Trump on Atlantic story. Sarah Huckabee Sanders was with him ahead of the visit to the French cemetery in 2018. Aide Zach Fuentes came in to say a bad weather call prevented the helicopter trip. I'm told it was nearly 3 hours by car. Kellogg wasn't in the room. So let me see what this says here. The Atlantic story is completely false. This is Keith Kellogg. The Atlantic story is completely false, absolutely lacks merit. I've been by the president's side. He has always shown the highest respect to our active duty troops and veterans, with utmost respect paid to those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and those wounded in battle. And this is Dan Scavino. I was with POTUS in France with Sarah and have been at his side throughout it all. Complete lies by anonymous sources that were dropped just as he begins to campaign and surge. A disgraceful attempt to smear POTUS 60 days before the presidential election. Disgusting. Yeah. And this is by Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The Atlantic story on Donald Trump is total BS. I was actually there and one of the people, part of the discussion. This never happened. I have sat in the room when our president called family members after their sons were killed in action, and it was heart-wrenching. And this is Jay Hogan Gidley. My response to the horrible lies from anonymous sources in the Atlantic. These are disgusting, grotesque, reprehensible lies. I was there in Paris, and the president never said those things. In fact, he would never even think such a vile thoughts, because I know from firsthand knowledge that President Trump absolutely loves, respects, and reveres the brave men and women of the United States military. He always has, and he always will. These weak, pathetic, cowardly background sources do not have the courage or decency to put their names to these false accusations because they know how completely ludicrous they are. It's sickening that they would hide in the shadows to knowingly try and hurt the morale of our great military simply for an attack on a political opponent. And that is Hogan Gidley, Trump 2020 National Press Secretary. So, yeah, I think we're pretty safe to say that this is complete hogwash. The White House said in a statement at the time that Trump's visit to the cemetery was canceled due to scheduling and logistical difficulties caused by the weather, and that former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, whose son was killed while serving in Afghanistan, went instead. So there was a rainstorm and the helicopter could not get there. So that was why it was canceled. Yeah. All right. So let's go on now. I did want to tackle that, though, to make sure that the right information got out there, because that is a pack of lies. And of course, I think that we probably knew that before we even looked into it. But let's look at this, because this made me kind of pause for reflection and go, huh? Phase 3 trials of coronavirus vaccine to take place at U.S. military sites, Pentagon confirms. Now, this is from yesterday, but my question is this. Why would they be holding coronavirus trials at military facilities? I don't know. Is it for safety? Is it so that possibly the vaccine can't get out and given to other countries? I don't know. I have no idea, but it does make me go, and gives me pause. Gives me, there's a lot of questions there in my mind. Sites for coronavirus vaccine trials have been announced, and volunteers are being asked to participate in the phase 3 trials. 5 United States military sites were chosen to participate in the third phase of the COVID-19 vaccine trials, the Pentagon announced in a statement provided to Fox News Thursday. The Department of Defense continues to play a key role in the development of a potential COVID-19 vaccine, Tom McCaffrey, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, said in a release. Now that vaccines have passed the first phases for testing for safety, dosing, and response, we are ready to move into the next phase where volunteers are needed to join large clinical studies. We are excited to have several sites identified to support the next steps in the vaccine development process, McCaffrey said in a press release. So those sites, which according to the Pentagon's release are located in the Washington, D.C., San Diego, and San Antonio areas, and will test AZD1222, the vaccine candidate currently being developed by AstraZeneca. The following sites were picked to participate in the Phase 3 trials: Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, Fort Belvoir Community Hospital in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, Joint Base San Antonio Brooke Army Medical Center, Wilford Hall Ambulatory Surgical Center, San Antonio, Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Volunteers are being asked to go to Coronavirus Prevention Network website or this link to volunteer. Yeah, like that's going to happen. Once the potential participant completes a survey, administrator will contact the military health system beneficiary volunteers in their area who are a good match for the study. To evaluate the efficacy of the vaccines, health officials are asking those from hardest hit communities to participate. The study is looking for individuals who are at a high risk for contracting COVID-19 infection, and as specified on their release, these include essential workers, healthcare professionals, emergency workers, public transit employees, grocery workers, those who work in meatpacking plants, restaurants, etc. Those living or working in nursing homes, correctional facilities, densely populated residential environments, blah, blah, blah. And those with underlying health conditions. These trials are part of Operation Warp Speed, the goal of which is to deliver safe and effective vaccines and therapeutics by January 2021, according to the Pentagon release. Now, I'm asking you guys, all of you guys, because someone out there has a lot more information than I do. I can assure you of that. So, is that normal? I mean, of course, everything about this vaccine is abnormal, but are you aware that any other vaccines have been tested in military facilities? I would like to know that. If anyone is aware of that information, please let me know in the comments. So I think that we'd all like to know that, because it just seems strange to me. I'm not trying to make an issue where there is none, but it's a little strange to me. So anyway, anyone with more information, please let us know. Now, let's look at this. All right, UNC, which is University of North Carolina, professor, they have deputized all white people to murder us. Yeah, that's what this professor said. A University of North Carolina professor claimed that all whites have been deputized to kill black people. She then claimed that those criticizing that statement were racist. Yeah, I like how that works. Yeah, because if you disagree with something that is blatantly wrong, she'll just call you racist. Yeah. Why she has still has a job, I'd like to know, wouldn't you? Her name is Tressie McMillan Cottom, Associate Professor, UNC School of Information and Library Sciences, Senior Research Professor, Center for Information Technology and Public Life. Well, that is deplorable, and you know what? I wouldn't feel safe around her, knowing that she thinks that. Is she trying to stir dissension, or does she actually believe that? And if she does actually believe that, she needs mental help. A professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Information and Library Sciences said that all white people have been deputized to murder black people. In response to a tweet stating that Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson supports citizen soldiers in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and alleging that Kyle Rittenhouse, the Illinois teenager charged with felony homicide after he was seen walking down a Kenosha street with a firearm slung across his back, is a citizen soldier, Tressie McMillan Cottom, a black woman, declared that they have deputized all white people to murder us. Attorneys for Rittenhouse say that 17-year-old who is being tried as an adult acted in self-defense. So, yeah. And this is her tweet. There she is, Tressie McMillan Cottom. They have deputized all white people to murder us. Right. Okay. Well, what are they feeding you on your planet? Like, really? What? I don't get it. All white people have been deputized. Right. That's the goal of all white people. Talk about paranoid. In response to criticism of her statement, Cottom declares that racists are big mad about this one. Oh, big mad. Yeah, can't speak English either. So I wouldn't want her teaching me or my children, not that I have children, but if I did, she wouldn't be teaching them. Well, I guess at that age, by the time they're in college, you really don't have too much say, but yeah, she says, oh, the racists are big mad about this one, I see. It's craziness. They've sent them body snatchers, she said in another tweet. Oh, well, if this account disappears, you'll know that I took it as a sign from God. And related, Auburn professor reassigned jobs after F every single cop tweet. And here we have another tweet by Tressie McMillan Cottom. Whew, this is going to be a doozy. They've sent them body snatchers. Oh, well, if this account disappears, you'll know that I took it as a sign from God. I don't know. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't want to know. Cottom is the author of Thick and Other Essays, which transforms narrative moments into analysis of whiteness, black misogyny, and status signaling as means of survival for black women. The work was a finalist for the 2019 National Book Award and was lauded by the New York Times Book Review, Chicago Tribune, Time, and The Guardian. Cottom is also co-host of Here to Slay, which her website describes as Black Feminist Podcast of Your Dreams. William Wharton, a senior at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, said he does not agree with the sentiment that white people have been deputized to kill black people. He said the statement is totally ridiculous and completely ignorant. Campus Reform reached out to Cottom and the University of North Carolina for comment, but did not hear back in time for publication. Well, no. So, yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, well, let's go on now. Yeah, and let's look at this. This is interesting as well. Really. PrEP Act secretly amended this week to allow pharmacists to vaccinate children ages 3 to 18. Isn't that interesting? I think so. While our nation was busy spending a considerable amount of time discussing racial inequities, as we should, or whether or not public schools and colleges were going to reopen or start online, or debating the upcoming national political conventions, our federal government, specifically the Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS, issued his third amendment to the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, which is short PrEP. The act was first enacted this year by a declaration from the Secretary of HHS on March 10th, 2020. The Third Amendment, issued August 24th, 2020, allows pharmacists to administer vaccines to children aged 3 to 18. Many states had previously established restrictions on who could administer childhood vaccinations. I must admit that this announcement slipped past me last week. I was alerted to it when talking with a parent advocate one evening. I could not believe it and thought it must just be for a specific state. Later, I searched the internet to find a few articles dated August 19th, 20th, and 21st. The Federal Register listed the action on Monday, August 24th. I remember my dad, who was a pharmacist in North Dakota. In the 60s and 70s, he mastered the art of compounding pharmacy. He was very busy preparing prescriptions for his customers, trying to interpret correctly the doctor's handwriting. He was proud of his profession, yet I doubt he would enjoy today's modern pharmacy. I would think that he would say vaccinations are for doctors, not for pharmacists. The action by the Secretary of HHS allows certain licensed pharmacists to order and administer and pharmacy interns who are acting under the supervision of a licensed pharmacist to administer any vaccine that the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommends to persons aged 3 through 18. So not only will your pharmacist be able to do it, but your pharmacy techs will be able to do it as well, as they are acting under the direction of a licensed pharmacist. This amendment was prompted by a report from the CDC in which it found a significant decrease in rates of routine childhood vaccinations. Now, with the federal announcement of this declaration, how will this play out in the states? How much weight does this declaration have regarding state law, which traditionally regulates the activities of state licensed pharmacists? So the question now to be answered, does this declaration by the Secretary of HHS supersede state law? And I would assume that it does. In the last couple of years, there were many proposed legislative bills introduced to allow pharmacists to administer childhood vaccines that did not go anywhere in state legislatures around the country. Is this declaration a product of those legislative failures? Or is this a flare shot high in the air to signal to state health departments to use their rulemaking authority to modify statutes to allow pharmacies to enter the childhood vaccination arena? Even my home state of Minnesota passed legislation in May 2020 to allow pharmacists to administer any FDA-approved COVID vaccine to children as young as 6 years of age. This is not a mandate, but rather setting up a horrible scenario for which pharmacists are clearly not trained to handle. The method of passing legislation during a peacetime emergency declaration by governors to circumvent public testimony is very troubling. The PrEP Act has been previously amended twice prior to this declaration. Previous amendments of the PrEP Act include the amendment on April 10th to extend liability immunity to covered countermeasures authorized under newly passed CARES Act. This declaration provides limited immunity to manufacturers of masks, plastic shields, gloves, and other protective equipment. Because actually it says right on the package that it doesn't prevent against coronavirus. So yeah, we can't have the mask makers, liable because the masks aren't meant for COVID. Anyway, the Second Amendment on June 4th, for the purpose of clarifying that covered countermeasures included qualified countermeasures that limit the harm COVID-19 might otherwise cause, basically allowing the use of therapeutics and other measures that were not designed for COVID to be used if necessary. Now, the problem of allowing pharmacists to administer childhood vaccines. In the vaccine court, currently the #1 petition filed for compensation is for shoulder injuries as a result of vaccination. Most of the injured persons, adults, received influenza or Tdap vaccinations from their local retail pharmacy, such as Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, or Target. If these retail pharmacies cannot properly administer a vaccine to an adult, why would we allow this for children? Well, that's a good question. So anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of this. I just want you to know that it is going on. Now, this is actually from today. So, okay, let's go back now and let's look at this. And remember, I talked to you about stockpiling food, and do not think that I am recommending this because I have a pony in the race. I don't sell, storable food, but at all. So it's no skin off my nose if you take my advice or don't take my advice, but I would highly recommend that you take my advice, and when you go grocery shopping, pick up a few items to put away and keep doing that, because everyone I'm talking to, so many sources I've got it from now, there is food shortages coming, severe, and that famines in some areas will be biblical, but there will be a worldwide food shortage. So please prepare, please. Just think about COVID, and by the time a lot of people got out to start going to the grocery stores, they were empty. So when this starts getting out to the people that aren't awake, right now, a lot of people that are awake know this. But when it starts getting out to the general public, you won't be able to stock up then. It'll be too late. So please, good sources of protein, peanut butter, tuna, things that last long, meat in a can, whatever. I know the meat in the can is gross, but, well, not tuna. I love tuna, but, anyway. Tuna, salmon, anything like that you can get a hold of. If if you're like I am in an agricultural area, so I actually know people that grow. That is good. I'll be able to get fruit and vegetables at least unless they do something to the weather or they ruin the crops or whatever, because that wouldn't put that past them either. So, but please, nail down a source of food. And I know a lot of you will say, well, I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford to prepare. But you can't afford not to prepare. You really can't. Just get a few items. Even like if you're challenged financially, a great thing to do is to buy a bag of dry rice, great big bag, and dried beans, because you can live on beans and rice indefinitely. You really can. I know, because I lived on it for months when I was working in the Mosquito Coast, and I came out perfectly healthy. So because it's a complete source of protein. So really, that is a very cheap. Now, it's not going to be fun to eat, and you're not going to be like relishing every meal, but at least you'll stay alive. And that's what it's all about. So anyway, here is another article. States and feds secretly stockpiling food to the roof in warehouses. So if they're doing that, what do they know? They know something. Wonder why there is a canned food shortage at your local grocery store? Washington State has been stocking away millions of dollars of non-perishable food, so have other U.S. states and the federal government, in anticipation of the need ahead. If states are preparing, so must you. And spread the word. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm not sure how long this is, actually. It's 8 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the states are stockpiling food, tons of it. We're learning now, suddenly. After months of being told everything's fine, there's no need for you to panic. In fact, they've discouraged you from buying goods. Remember, they even blamed the shortages of canned goods that we've seen in the store on you for buying too many canned goods. But it turns out that was all bollocks. Now we're learning the states have been stockpiling. This report from the Seattle Times: from peanut butter to applesauce, Washington State stockpiles tons of food. Why? For the need ahead, because they know there are massive interruptions to our supply chain already, that these are escalating, that there are cascading failures building on themselves, that there are harvest labor failures coming in, and that there will be food shortages directly ahead for all of us. It's also baked into the plan. So it's no surprise that they're preparing for this. And look at the language they're using. These canned beans in the stockpiles are sitting there like soldiers waiting to be sent into duty. Even the language they're using tells us this is a food wars situation. And I want to talk about that. I'm Christian, and this is the Ice Age Farmer broadcast.
What you're looking at here in this Fife warehouse is about 1,200 pallets of food.
The purpose of this is to provide sort of a reservoir for shelf-stable food that is entering the system to support our hunger prevention efforts around the state.
Derek Sanderson, director of the Washington State Department of Agriculture, toured the state's new COVID Strategic Reserve on Friday. Within 48 hours of communities asking for help, these pallets can be placed on trucks and distributed to food pantries across the state. The focus is on stockpiling foods like canned vegetables, peanut butter, items that don't spoil easily. During the early days of the pandemic, they were also hard to come by at times.
Now, I want to tell you that just because they're saying this is COVID related, it isn't necessarily. I mean, there are worldwide food shortages already in the works because of the weather, all sorts of things. I mean, flooding in China is off the charts, and it's ruined the crops there. So, and a lot of other places as well. This has been a bad year, and because of COVID as well. I mean, look at the meat packing plants. They had to actually euthanize the animals because they couldn't take them to the meat packing plants because they were all shut down. So, yeah, there are hard times ahead this fall. I really believe that. And we know it's not going to be a picnic leading up to the election. Not at all. And so, and I'm going to get out of here because it's 8 minutes long, and I can't just play a video for 8 minutes on here. But this is Health Impact News. I just found this website. It's Health Impact News. And this is under... Well, if you just go to the home page there, you will see this article. And please, please, if you've ever listened to me before, please stockpile at least a little food, because you will not be mistaken. Like, it won't, you can always eat it. It's not like you're buying something and just flushing money down the toilet, because also there is inflation coming. So if you buy, some beans today and you pay 88 cents a can, then, and 6 months from now it's $3 a can. Well, you've saved money. So yeah, I think that is the best investment right now, is food. Not that I am in the business of telling anybody about investments or anything like that, but I just that is how I feel. And I am, as much as I can, trying to put food away. So anyway, that is all there is to that. But I do think we're in for some rough times ahead, because you just think about it. Look what we've seen already. And we've still got 2 months till the election. And do you really think if Trump wins, there's going to be civil unrest no matter what happens? Because if Trump wins, then you're going to have the left all upset. And we know that when the left is upset, it erupts in violence, because that's what they know. That's what they do. But if Biden gets elected, I think we'll all know that there was foul play and the country is going to erupt. So I just feel that this election is not going to be easy on the country at all. Anyway, that is my 2 cents for what it's worth. Probably not much now with inflation. Probably only 1.5 cents at most. But let's go on now and see what else we have. Let's look at this. Yes, now I find this mildly hysterical. Well, maybe a little bit more than mildly hysterical, because you look at Bill Clinton, and especially if you listen to it without the sound, like Bill Clinton sitting here while his wife talks with his arms folded, which is, he's trying to shut her out, because his that's what he's saying with his body language, and he's looks totally bored and uninterested. And then there's Hillary, what's she going on about? Well, the Russians. It's the Russians, don't you know? She's still on that. She's still on it. She needs help, psychological help. So let me make it bigger for my tiny phone people, because they don't need psychological help. They're all right in my books. So let's listen to this.
And these people will stop at nothing. And yes, the Russians helped them last time. The Russians are helping them now. And after the White House, that the White House has said, don't brief the Congress. Don't even tell them in classified settings what the Russians are doing this time. And these people will stop at nothing. And yes, the Russians helped them last time. The Russians are helping them now. And after the White House, that the White House has said, don't brief the Congress. Don't even tell them in classified settings what the Russians are doing this time. And these people will stop at nothing. And yes, the Russians helped them last time.
Okay, well, we've listened to it through twice now. Now, this is my impression of Hillary. It's the Russians. The Russians helped them last time, and they're helping them again. It's pretty accurate. Okay, so yeah, now we know everything is the Russians again. Russia, 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 Russia. It was like Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Now it's Russia, Russia, Russia. That's all we hear. She's one note Hillary, just Russia. She just keeps repeating that, thinking that somehow it'll make it true. Okay, now, this man, this is de Blasio's New York City. Now, let me make it bigger for the tiny phone people, because, got to think of them. Now, here is this guy. He's looking down at his phone. He is outside of a funeral home, apparently, from what I've heard. And he just kind of stops. He's looking at his phone. And here comes 2 guys on a moped. Yeah, moped. Yeah, you know, don't know why you'd use a moped for a drive-by shooting, but hey, whatever. So let's go back here, and I want to play this for you. This man, they murder this man in cold blood. Then they went on to murder, I think it was at least one other person in cold blood. And this guy did die from his injuries. So this is awful. But this is New York City. This is the violence that is happening in New York City. There's no reason for this. This guy hasn't done anything. It looks like the two guys on the moped are black, and this gentleman is black. So I don't know. But let's look. Now, why? Why? What was this guy doing? He was just looking down at his cell phone, wasn't bothering anybody. In fact, he turns and looks at them because he doesn't think there's any danger there, and they just open fire on him, point blank. Unreal. Is that what we've come to? And it says, watch, 2 men on an electric scooter shoot man at point blank range, drive off in Mayor de Blasio's New York City. Has anyone heard an update? Well, yes, I have heard an update, and he has died from his injuries. Where is Black Lives Matter on this? Guess it doesn't fit their narrative because it wasn't a cop killing a black. Yeah, well, this is just out and out cold-blooded murder. This guy did, well, maybe they did know the guy. Maybe he had a hit out on him or whatever. I don't know. But the fact that they went on and murdered others leads me to think that they just picked this guy out and he was an easy target. It's awful, unbelievable. I'm so glad I'm not living there now because they've tied the police hands, you know, and this is what's happening. Crime is erupting. Now, I love the Hodge twins. I love them. And if you are on Twitter, you should follow them because they're awesome and they're hysterical. I don't know what it is, but this guy, he's got this face that he just makes you laugh by looking at him. My brother had one of those faces. He would just walk in the room. People would start to laugh because he just always had that look on his face that he was just about to say something hysterical. Anyway, I like this. It says, hang on here. Even if that was the case and you were set up, and they're talking about Nancy Pelosi and in the salon without the mask, and then of course, you know, being the upstanding citizen that she is, she just blames the salon. Well, they set me up. I'm only guilty of the fact that they set me up. Anyway, the Hodge twins, gotta love them, said, even if that was the case and you were set up, why were you in there with no mask on? Well, that's true. She never addresses that, does she? No. And she's the one, wear a mask, wear a mask. Everybody should be wearing a mask. Everybody but her, apparently. Yeah. So, let's take a look at this. Now, this is in Rochester, New York. And I could not believe when I saw this video. I just couldn't believe it. But, you know, what happened there, a police officer, and really the death in Rochester, New York was especially heinous. I've seen the video. I couldn't watch it all because it was extremely upsetting to watch. They put a bag over the head, this guy's head, and they literally suffocated him to death. Now, that was, I mean, blatant murder. And I do understand why people would be upset with that. But it also makes me wonder if some of this stuff isn't a setup to get people riled up and to get riots started. I don't know. But here it says, happening now, the protesters in Rochester, New York are shutting down restaurants. Tables are broken, people running off scared. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to make sure that and it is. All right. Let's take a look at this. I'll make it bigger. All right. They're entering a restaurant. you'll notice like all out here, this part right here is an outside patio. So they've disrupted the diners. They've just taken their hands and the plates, whatever they were eating from, has gone onto the floor. Dishes are crashing, whatever. People are getting up and fleeing the restaurant. Then they go inside and do the same thing. So let me continue here.
There's no need to run. Nobody's hurting y'all. We're shutting the party down. Nobody's gonna touch you. We're shutting the party down. Calm down. Calm down.
And this is in another restaurant.
If you don't give us our shit, if you don't give us our shit, we'll shut shit down.
They're saying, if you don't give us our shit, we'll shut them down. And that's exactly what they're doing. These people are just peacefully eating. Now, what did these restaurant owners ever do to these people? And these diners were just sitting peacefully dining. They're not doing anything. And this huge crowd, you know, just barges into the restaurant, throws plates and everything on the floor, you know, throws chairs, says, give us our shit or we'll close the place down. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. All right, now, this says important, so let's look at this because I'm running out of time. I think I've been going for quite a while now. Yeah, let's look at this because this is good. Let me just check to see how long I've been going here. Wow, we're already at an hour and 11 minutes. All right, I'm going to wrap this up real quick. Okay, but I do want to play this for you. It's 1 minute and 1 second. So let's do this and this.
They're not going to stop, and they shouldn't.
These people are tearing up our lives.
Third straight night, Portland police declared a riot.
The vast majority of the protesters were peaceful.
Over the weekend, 59 officers injured and 47 people arrested.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing a proposal to cut $1 billion from the New York City Police Department.
We need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
Safe in Joe Biden's America.
I thought that was a very, very well done. You know, I guess the Trump administration put that out as a campaign video and very, very well done. So let's come back here. Now, I think I'm going to Yeah, there's other stuff that I want to get to, but I don't want to do 2 videos tonight. I'm just not up to it tonight, but let me cover this. Governor Kate Brown of Oregon yesterday proclaimed 6 new laws aimed at neutering the police. No tear gas, no chokeholds, no anything to control riots or mobs. Shooting in Portland in 2019 totaled 299. So far this year, 488 as of September 2nd, 2020. What a pathetic Democrat state. And I would agree. And Nellie Stirs, who I believe, at least she used to be a watcher of this show. I'm not sure if she still is, but she is on Twitter, goes by Nellie Stirs, and boy does Nellie stir. She stirs a lot. She's a good person to follow, has a lot of good information. The owner of The Atlantic is a mega donor for Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris. We see right through the leftist frauds, and we do. And this from the salon owner, Erica. She is the salon owner that Pelosi visited. I was never much involved in politics, but after seeing what Nancy Pelosi said about me, sending me lots of negative attention, I will be a large Trump advocate from here on out. I've been harassed and sent death threats. Please help me get my message out there. So, Erica, I am trying to get your message out there as much as I can anyway, and I hope that others will do the same. At least we've got another Trump supporter. That's good, but it's horrible that, you know, she's lost her business and everything because of this and is now being, you know, given death threats. And here is another post by Erica, the salon owner. It's amazing that Pelosi tried to ruin my life. I've been getting death threats nonstop. I have police outside of my home and salon 24/7. I love the police. Return tweet if you do too. I love the police too. Not all police are good. I understand that, but there are an awful lot of good ones anyway. So I'm going to end there for tonight anyway, and I will be back with another video tomorrow. And you guys have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. Come on over here and do it with me. Yeah, I mean, seek the truth. Yeah. All right, guys, you have a wonderful evening. Good night.